Welcome to this week's Head to Toe Healing Live. Dr. Kevin Reese created Head to Toe Healing, and he utilizes three macro methods. There's the musculoskeletal system, nutrition, and mindfulness. In our membership, these three methods help people get out of chronic pain, regain their health, strength, and providing their body an environment where it can start healing itself. My name is Coach Karen, and today we're going to be discussing sciatica pain, and that affects so many people. They come into our membership, and that's one of the key things that they want to get rid of. So today, joining me are my panel of experts, our head to toe healing specialists, Coach Sean, Coach Ryan, and Coach Gingy. So I wanted to start out with Ryan. A lot of times, as I mentioned, people are coming into our membership with sciatica pain. They're having a hard time moving, walking, working. It's very painful, debilitating. I've had friends, family members that this has happened to as well, and it just seems to make life so hard. For Ryan, from a nutritional perspective, what are the most common contributing factors to sciatica?
Mineral deficiency. And in this case, it usually is that simple. It usually is just a deficiency of calcium and its cofactors. And copper could be one of those as well. And anytime I mention that, people say, well, should I just go out and buy calcium supplements? Well, no, most calcium supplements don't work because they're very difficult to absorb and they don't have the cofactors there. So we have an excellent bone formula, and it usually does work quite well. So from the nutritional perspective, it's almost entirely mineral deficiencies. It could be B vitamin deficiencies as well. B vitamins are very involved in the nervous system, but in practice, it's mostly mineral deficiency.
Got it. Coach Sean, what about you from posture? What is your viewpoint for people that have, is there hope for them, the people that have sciatic pain? A lot of times it's hurtful. They have a hard time moving. What can posture alignment therapy do for them?
Yeah, so that is actually one of the most common cases that we deal with, mainly because sciatica is a result of another issue, whether it's like tight hip flexors or it's a bulging disc or some type of misalignment in the lower back. It could be a tight back as well. And the issue with sciatica, though, is no one sciatica is the same. And so a method that would work for somebody with sciatica, with the other person, it could be a completely different method. And so we kind of have to give them specific exercises to avoid and specific exercises to do to help uncompress that nerve. Because essentially what's happening is, whether it's a bulging disc or stenosis or osteoporosis or something, some type of degenerative disease, some type of compression of the nerve, whatever it is, with sciatica, you have to address the root cause. You can't address the sciatica as a root cause because it's caused by something else. And so when we get the muscles to move the bones into the correct alignment and give space for the blood and the lymphatic system to flow through and take all the toxicities out and get all the nourishment in, that's when the issue would reverse itself. And so it's just simply realigning the body that help basically the sciatica in general. But yeah, it's a compressed nerve, and we deal with it all the time successfully at that. And it just takes a little bit of work. Some people's sciatica takes 2 weeks, some take 2 months. Just depends. It depends on daily activity as well. I'm going to go a little long on that, but it depends on daily activity as well. Because some people, I remember one person, they had sciatica. It just did not stop. And then you figured out that their day job, they were bending over, and they weren't one of those people that bend over with their with their knees. They bent over with their back, and it was like they were under load most of the time when they were bending over, and so it always re-aggravated that nerve. So you got to pay attention to your lifestyle as well, because that contributes.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, would you please explain how head to toe healing utilizes mindfulness for helping somebody that has sciatica, pain, or other chronic conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. So The biggest thing I would recommend is to just walk through your day with an awareness of your habits. Because sciatica is not something that, happens in an instant. It's something that you slowly wear and tear into that part of the body until it becomes painful. And then you have to kind of dig your way out of it. Sciatica is actually one of the things I struggled with a handful of years ago. It started out as just a little pinch and then, started hurting on long road trips. And then eventually it was like a daily thing. And what I noticed in that experience is that some chairs didn't make me hurt. Other chairs made me hurt. Sometimes the pain went all the way down through my hamstrings and into my knees and stuff. I'm like, what's going on? I have no idea. And so it wasn't until I started actually working on posture and core and all of this other stuff that, like Sean was saying, help the blood flow. And this was well before I even knew anything about nutrition. And so, if you really get at it from the nutritional side and the posture side, while not allowing yourself to get too overly worked up or stressed or frustrated and have all this tension and cortisol being spiked, you want to stay relaxed, you want to stay grounded, you want to stay healthy and happy in the right side of the nervous system so that we can allow the nutrients to work, allow the posture stuff to work. Like imagine trying to do posture exercises for this while also being tensed up all the time. You wouldn't really be able to strengthen the right muscles that you need to strengthen in order to have the posture correct itself. So you need to actually relax and do the work. It's like a letting go and a pulling at the same time in order to get the right effects with this. So you want to be mindful. But tension is usually something that people aren't aware of. If I said, like, where are your shoulders right now? You might go and let your shoulders drop all of a sudden because you weren't thinking about it. So mindfulness is absolutely key to this entire operation, this entire problem of sciatica, because being unmindful about it is what got you in the situation in the first place. You weren't mindful of what nutrients you needed to avoid sciatica. You weren't mindful of what posture or daily routines that led to this. You weren't mindful of what the underlying root causes are that have you in this position in the first place. So, step one, recognize that there is a solution and start working towards that.
Thank you. Ryan, once somebody has sciatica, the pain's pretty extreme, inflammation's high. What are foods that they could avoid to reduce that inflammation down?
Well, you want to avoid all the poor four bad foods. So gluten, oil, fried, and fake. Each one of those is going to come with inflammation in a slightly different way. But yeah, completely avoid all processed foods, and grains in general are the most overall inflammatory food. Got to mention dairy as well, because although it's not on our bad food list, still a lot of people are really sensitive to dairy, and it can be inflammatory if you're lactose intolerant or your system's just not handling it. So you might need to do a food diary. Just because it's not on our bad food list doesn't mean that you don't have a problem with some other food, right? I mention this almost every week. It could be anything. It could be chocolate. Most of the most common offenders are food additives, things like MSG and food dyes and stuff like that. But in general, if you avoid processed foods, you'll be avoiding all that stuff anyways. And if you take it further and get off the grains, the oil, and the deep fried food, then you're going to be eliminating most of the biggest sources of inflammation in your diet.
That's great. Thank you for that. This one's directed to both Coach Ryan and Coach Sean. We'll start with Ryan. So for an individual that has a compressed disc, is it possible for the body to regenerate some of that disc? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, the disc needs to regrow. There's a cushioning. I'm sure Coach Sean has something we can look at for that. There's a cushioning in between each of the spinal brackets there, and that's made of connective tissue, and it can be regrown. Despite what the mainstream medical world says, it absolutely can be regrown. Body can regrow cartilage and connective tissue, yes. And yeah, if the bones are jamming against each other, the nerves are in there too. They're going to be getting pinched. They're going to be in pain. It can be regrown. We need all 90 essential nutrients to do so, and extra connective tissue constituent nutrients.
Thank you for that. So, Coach Sean, in your posture perspective, is there hope for people to open up that compressed spine to get relief from a herniated disc or impingements in the spine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I I have a little prop, but it doesn't actually bulge out. But that's technically what your disc and that little cushion in between each of the vertebrae. It's a little disc. It's like a little jelly donut, I like to say. And so as that slips out, the bones start to compress together. So whatever nerves are intertwined going in between, that starts to compress those nerves. And so the main thing we're doing in posture alignment therapy is increasing the space, decompressing, so that the bulging disc has basically space to fall back into place. Ultimately, what starts to happen as that disc bulges out, it starts to deteriorate because it's not getting functional, it's just not getting efficient nutrients to that area. And it's not really blood that flows through, it's like a fluid. And if that fluid is not able to get to certain areas because it's pinched and it's little space to get into that part of the disc, it starts to fall apart. So, again, the main thing we're doing is just creating space for the nutrients to get to the area that it's supposed to get to. So, we're like just the floodgates, essentially, or just the dam. And we're helping the nutrients get where they're supposed to be, but also making room for the disc to slide back into place. That's the issue. If it's sliding out of place, then whatever you're doing, and there's two types of sciatica. It's either flexion, where your body's bending forward, or extension, where your body's bending backwards. And if you continue to do like whatever type of sciatica you have, if you continue to do uh, movements that exacerbate this pain, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. First, you need to figure out what is causing the sciatica. What type of sciatica is it? Is it like bulging disc? Is it herniated disc? Is it degenerative disc? Is it arthritis, spinal stenosis, as I said earlier? And then from there, go into basically, you can apply mindfulness to this. I call it kinesthetic awareness. What is exacerbating those symptoms? What causes the hurt? Do you bend over and it causes the hurt? Do you feel it in your hamstrings? You lie on one side on the couch and it causes the pain? You sit a certain way and it causes the pain? Pay attention to what's causing the pain, because that could be something that you should avoid in order to, I know you can't avoid it forever, but in order to stop the progression to a worse and worse pain, you need to identify what are actually causing the issues. Is it a flexion, a bending motion, or is it an extension, backward bending? So you have to figure out what that is and start from there. Of course, I can only do so much to help you from this chat. Like, you would need to work with us in order for us to help you, because I need to understand what movements are basically affecting you, and give you the opposite in order to counteract the progression of the sciatica. So on one hand, it is like something that you need to have someone that knows what they're doing to work with you to reverse this condition. But on the other hand, you got to be mindful and know what's actually causing the pain first, and stop doing those methods. Like, if it's something that you have to do day to day, learn a better way to do it. That's the best advice that I can give to you. It's most likely going to come from your day to day routine.
That's awesome. Thank you. We actually have somebody in the chat right now, Sandra. She has 3 herniated discs. So hopefully this information is helpful for you, Sandra. You might want to get in touch with us. Go to drkevinreese.com to get more information. There's YouTube videos, links on that page. There's also testimonials from our members. And there's a start button there where you can actually schedule a call with one of our coaches and talk one-on-one about what's going on with your body and see how we might be able to help you reverse your issues. Another question here in the chat, we have somebody that has plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis. Is there something that posture can do for that, Coach Sean?
Yeah. Yeah. And same thing. It's a little hard to address plantar fasciitis because it's never a result of like, oh, like, it's always, how do I say it? It's always the site of the pain. Very rarely is the site of the pain ever the source. And so it's always coming from something else. Usually can be coming from like how you're walking, your entire gait. It can come from your heels. It can come from your knees, your hips. It's never actually going to come from the actual source or the source of the pain, if that makes sense. So plantar fasciitis, it's easy to reverse, but it's also hard to just do it like a quick protocol online and fix everything all together, because it's usually a series of things. Like the first thing I would say to start off with is change your shoes. Or if you can't really change your shoes, wear toe aligners in the shoes, wear toe spacers, walk barefoot as much as you can, wear barefoot shoes. Like that's, again, we're going back to your daily routine, what you're doing throughout the day. If you're sitting in shoes for 8-10 hours a day, then it's just not going to contribute to your health at all. Like you need to have some type of help, some type of thing that you can wear in your shoes. And I'm not talking about implants or like soles. I'm talking about some toe aligners, something that will space out your toes, or wearing wide toe shoes. That would help the most out of everything. Walking barefoot and toe aligners, that would be the best thing to start off with. But again, we need to get to the root cause.
Thank you for that. Mary's asking Coach Ryan, greens, you say they're inflammatory. What about chlorophyll? Is that not helpful?
When did I say greens were inflammatory? They can be if you have a messed up
I don't
digestive.
know.
They can be if you have a messed up digestive system. And I'm a big fan of chlorophyll, spirulina, chlorella in bulk. A lot of rip-off supplements out there charging way too much for the stuff. It was always very, very cheap until it got popular recently. Talking about big bags of it for like $10. Yeah, I'm a fan. I put it in my drinks too.
Fantastic. Okay. And Dawn's asking, I need to walk normally again after so many falls. Coach Sean, I'm going to divert it back to you because I know that has a lot to do with posture. If somebody's falling, some corrections need to happen. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, you got to get in the classes. I mean, posture alignment therapy is something that you do every day. It's like a supplement. Like as you take your nutritional supplements, you need to supplement with motion. As Karen says, motion is lotion. And so it's not just, oh, let me walk around. That's my motion. Ask yourself, when was the last time I reached up and grabbed something? Actually think about it. When was the last time I turned around and reached and got something behind me? And then how many times am I doing that? It's not just like once in a week. You don't do that enough. That's the thing. Like a normal average human does not get enough movement. We live inside a box. And what I mean by box, like we don't stretch out of that box. We don't reach up. We don't go behind. We don't reach under that box. We stay in this box for most of the day. So this little spigot, this little dot of human history, we're moving less than ever before, less than the entire human history. And so our bodies have evolved to movement, and then out of nowhere, we're just not moving. We're not utilizing it. And so a body that has adapted to that type of movement would thrive off of it. But in the lack of that movement, it falls apart. And so it's just, you have to start using those muscles again. That's the rule of nature. What you don't use, you lose. And so the more inactive you are and the more basically improper movement, the more improperly you move throughout the day from learned behavior or just something you just don't know, the more you're going to suffer. And so with posture alignment therapy, that's when we teach you how to move, or we give you exercises to do throughout the day, or a routine every single day that would help you get back your strength. We've had people get up off the ground. We've had people lose their walkers, not because they lost it, but because they don't need it anymore, and get rid of their pain, their foot pain. That's like one of, I would say, the number one things we can get rid of for people is pain. Obviously, that's the most notable, but it's because we have all three of these methods working together, and it gets the pain gets gone pretty easily, but it just requires consistency, dedication, and doing all three of the macro methods, not just posture alignment therapy, not just nutrition, but all three, mindfulness as well. And so it's 3 legs to the stool. Although it could be a postural issue, you still need all three. That was a bit of a tangent, but I'm mainly just saying it's just something you have to get active and get in a class and do something. It's not something that you can just go on YouTube and look up a routine to do, and that's going to fix your problems, because it's just going to resurface again. Mostly because, just like with supplements, if you're just focusing on one problem, then you continue to focus on one problem while another problem behind the scenes starts to develop and manifest into another issue that you have to deal with. Now you're going on YouTube for the other issue, and then you got to go back to that problem because you stopped doing the exercises for that. Why continue doing that when you can do everything all at once and realign the body as a whole? It's just the same thing. It's the same approach as nutrition, for example. You know, Ryan is saying, why would you just focus on one supplement, one nutrient, when there's hundreds? Well, there's 90. But I'm just saying, like, you have to balance it correctly, or you're just going to spend a life chasing symptoms. And it's not fun to chase symptoms. It's fun to get rid of the symptoms altogether. And it does not come from addressing the source.
That is so true. Actually, it's funny because I found Dr. Reese, like a lot of people that are joining us or listening to this in a replay online and social medias a few years ago. And I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of upper back, shoulder pain, and it just was not going away. I didn't know why or what was happening. And it looks like my camera might have paused. Did it? Or are we back again? Nope. Let me try to get that going. Anyway, I found Dr. Reese a few years ago, and I started doing posture alignment therapy, nutrition, mindfulness, and my body really started turning around. And it didn't take all that long. It was, I want to say around day 70, I noticed some significant differences, and I didn't have pain anymore. So if that's something that's appealing to you, getting out of pain in a short period of time, really, I mean, all of us have been on the earth maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years. And with that, our bodies are in dysfunction. They're lacking nutrition. We are constantly flooded with information on social media or the mainstream media that's fearful, and it gets us in a position where our body can't rest, digest, and start to heal. But once you start incorporating the 3 macro methods with posture, mindfulness, and nutrition, it's amazing how fast it works. So check us out at drkevinreese.com. You can get more information. Hit the start button if you want to book a call with us and talk to us directly. It's a free consultation for about 15 minutes or so to get a glimpse of what's going on in your world and what you want to change. But I wanted to pop over to Coach Ryan again. When I was looking up information about sciatica, sometimes pinched nerves are happening because there's a bone spur on the spine and it's compressing the spine. With bone spurs, is that something that can go away?
Yep, that's the same nutrient deficiency category, the calcium group. Remembering always, it's not just calcium. There's a whole bunch of different cofactors. That's one of the most misunderstood nutrients. But yeah, bone spurs, bunions, even osteoporosis, right? As bone density decreases, bones actually expand. So that can pinch nerves in there as well, causing pain, of course. Yep. But it's the same nutrient group. So we wouldn't have to use any extra products or anything for that.
And that's why it's treating the whole body or working on the whole body.
Yeah, usually we talk about one nutrients, in context of one question that's coming up, but realistically, we could speak the whole hour about any nutrient. Pick a nutrient out of the hat, and you could speak about it, how it relates to the eyes and the nervous system and mood and hormones, and basically every nutrient has roles all throughout the body. And it's especially true with calcium because it's both structural and functional. So you're made of it, and you need it to work properly.
So one thing you brought up there were bunions. With bunions, and people get the big kind of bulge on their large toe joint. Is that something where that would reduce over time, Ryan?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. And then Coach Sean, too, can you follow up on this too? Because I know posture therapy really makes a huge difference for bunions and recorrecting the feet, and the feet support the whole body. And what's your opinion as far as helping somebody regain their, I guess, balance, strength, mobility with posture therapy?
Uh, Relatively the same thing. With bunions and toe issues in general, I just recommend a little added boost is like toe spacers, wide shoes. Changing your shoes generally changes a lot for people. Or basically learning how to just take off your shoes when you're not using them to walk around. So like you get into a building, you can take off your shoes. Of course, if you're comfortable with your feet being on the floor, you go home, take off your shoes immediately, take them off at the door, and don't put them on until you start leaving for work or something. But other than that, it's mostly what we would handle in the posture alignment therapy class.
Great. Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, mindfulness is often overlooked as a tool as far as getting out of pain or chronic illness. In your opinion, why is it the key element that might make the most difference for some people that have been in pain for a really long time?
Well, first thing I would say is that if you go see a regular medical doctor, they're going to tell you that the pain is just there. There's nothing they can do about it except for take some pain medication, which, as we know, is like trying to put tape over the warning light on your dashboard in your car and ignoring what's going on in the engine. So, what we would want to do is actually understand what that pain is trying to tell you and then go address the actual problem. So, in my experience with all of this work, it is paramount. It is incredibly important to take your mind and align it in a direction towards an actual solution. So if I went in and I said, "Hey, doctor, I have shoulder pain," and he goes, "Well, you're just getting old. Here's some pain meds. It'll help you sleep." I would see that as not a solution, but as a band-aid to a bigger problem. And I go to somebody else. Okay, what can you do? Well, if you do these movements, you can kind of work some stuff out. Okay, that might be a solution, and I'll orient myself in that direction. And I'll start doing those movements. And if that improves my situation, great. If it doesn't, then I'm moving on to find a different solution. So mindfulness is literally the thing that, if it gets aligned on an actual solution, can take you all the way through to solving the problem. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to do here. We're saying, hey, it's not about the symptoms. Your symptoms are simply warning lights on the dash. They're telling you that there's an underlying problem. You don't want the pain? Okay, instead of numbing it, let's get to the root cause. Reverse the root cause and watch how the pain just goes away on its own. So the whole thing about mindfulness is to keep it in that state. Because as soon as you believe, well, if there's no hope for me, guess what you feel? Guess what emotions come up? Guess what that does to your chemistry in the body? It doesn't keep you in a state of rest and digest or rest and restore. It doesn't keep you in a state of actually repairing the body. It keeps you locked into a degenerative phase, basically, I'll call it. So you want to move out of that phase and you want to move into the healing phase. And we want to keep you in the healing phase until you've healed all the way through the actual problems, the underlying issues. So, what I basically do in all my work around mindfulness is simply, how do I get you out of your own way? How do I get the thoughts that you're thinking to align to the goal that you want to actually have? How do we see your target and make sure that we align to it and move all the way to it? And it'd be like trying to sail the Atlantic without a compass. Like, you just wouldn't be able to do it. You get pushed about by the tides and the waves, and you would end up getting lost and you'd land somewhere you didn't intend to go. And if you don't have a destination, that's fine to do. You're like, I'm just curious about the adventure of the world. I want to go see where it takes me. Great. That can be the aim. But if your goal is to end up at a very specific destination, to like not need a surgery or get off of a medication, or live pain free or be able to bend over and pick up your grandkids, whatever the goal is, like that's what we can actually get you to. So we got to have this mindfulness of a compass and have that trajectory the whole way through. So I don't think you can actually heal without the right mindset. How many people do you know that are like, oh, well, doctor said I have to, so, what am I going to do? That mindset will keep them in the doctor's office taking drugs and avoiding the root cause. Whereas if you shift your mindfulness to or your mindset to say, I'm going to actually find out the reason why this is here. I'm going to entertain ideas from other people. I'm going to actually find others that have reversed this problem themselves and ask them what they did. Now, all of a sudden, you're aligning your mind to a solution. So, a lot of times, a lot of repetition there to say the same thing, but like that mental compass is huge. It's paramount.
Thank you for that. Coach Ryan, we've got a question here from Lynn saying, how do you reverse acid reflux? It just won't go away.
Usually with salt, because reflux is caused almost every time, not every single time, but most of the time, it's caused by low stomach acid. So your body makes stomach acid from salt. And it's a big mistake that a lot of healthy people do, or people that are trying to be healthy, trying to eat healthy, eating real food. A lot of them don't use enough salt. You need probably more salt. And you also want to make sure that you're not lowering your stomach acid. If you take a Tums or something once in a blue moon, if you have stomach pain, or some baking soda once in a blue moon when you have stomach pain, it's no problem. But if you're taking Tums every day, or you're taking a proton pump inhibitor, or you're in the habit of drinking carbonated drinks with your meals, all of that's going to be lowering your stomach acid. And that could be causing the reflux. So usually it is fixed just with salt, and usually it is pretty easy. There is more that you could do. You could use betaine hydrochloride or another hydrochloride, a supplement product. But again, usually salt is enough to fix the problem, a proper high dose of salt.
Thank you for that. One other question for you, Coach Ryan. Erica is saying that my husband has cervical spinal stenosis. Can Dr. Reese's program reverse his issue?
Well, today we're here talking about sciatica, and we talked about bunions. These are all in the same category. Stenosis is in the same category, the arthritis, calcium, and cofactor deficiency category. So yes, it's reversible. Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you. Coach Sean, I wanted to pop over to you. As part of getting started the head to toe healing program, and is beginning with a head to toe analysis with Dr. Reese. He evaluates people's bodies, their posture. Coach Sean, would you please share the benefit of somebody doing a head to toe analysis with us and how that really works?
Yeah, well, always when or after someone has their analysis done, they always say, or even before, once they take their pictures, they're like, I never knew I stood like that. I never knew my body looked like that. And so that's the main thing right there. Nobody even knows what type of imbalances or dysfunctions they have going on in their own body. I mean, you can't really feel it unless you like take a picture of it and you see it, or you look at yourself in the mirror. You can't really feel a hip hike or a shoulder hike or your body's twisted. It's just something you learn to adjust to, and you just go about your life until someone says you walk funny, or you look in the mirror and you're like, do I really walk like that? Or take a picture of yourself. And so it's just building what I call kinesthetic awareness. It's building that muscle mind connection to where you see, it's not only like what you see, how your muscles are, but you can feel like the hike of the shoulder, and you can start to address it by just pulling that shoulder down, rolling those shoulders back when you're sitting down. Just knowing how your body looks would help you understand some of the dysfunctions that you have going on in the body. And on top of that, uh, what I found out is that most of the, like, for example, like forward head or rounded shoulders, when people have got like above the shoulder symptoms from that, that oftentimes wherever that dysfunction, that posture dysfunction is in the body, it directly correlates to whatever bodily or like organ wise dysfunction they have going on in the body. For example, I had sway back, so I had a lot of dysfunction going on in my lower back and pelvis area, and that also was the reason I had gut issues, because when I corrected the sway back, the gut symptoms went away, and they were extremely bad. And so it was just something as simple as that, correcting the posture, not just, loading up with nutrients, but uh, basically creating space and the ability for your body to heal, creating the perfect environment for your body to heal or maintain homeostasis. And so it's really important just to know. That's the first step, just to know how your body looks so you can start, you know, correcting the issues or just be aware of them and trying actively to fix them.
Thank you for that. Actually, it's funny, when I found Dr. Reese a few years ago, he did the head to toe analysis for me, and I had no idea that my body was really falling apart. I basically was a train ready to derail at any time because there were so many other symptoms and issues going on with my body. I had a shoulder higher than the other, a hip hike, pelvis rotation. It, my upper back was hurting. I had started to get the hump on my upper back, and all of that was causing so much pain in my head, my neck, my shoulders, getting massive migraines all the time. But that analysis was key. It was a great starting point to give me a symptom score. So that way, when I moved into the program and I started doing the mindfulness training, the posture, getting my body flooded with the right nutrition, it could start reversing the symptoms, the issues that were going on. And as I said before, by around day 70, I started feeling amazing. So if that sounds appealing to you, go to drkevinreese.com, get more information, look at our testimonials, watch more YouTube videos, and click the start button, book a call with us, and we would be happy to chat with you and find out more about what you're trying to overcome. More questions that we have in the chat today. Kathy is asking, Ryan, my thyroid is high. What can I do besides medication to get it back to normal?
Say that again, blood pressure?
My thyroid is high. What can I do besides medication to get it back to normal?
Well, medication will suppress it at best. So you need to give your body and your thyroid everything that it needs to function correctly. All organs need a huge spread of nutrients, practically all the nutrients, but there's a bunch of minerals that are, pretty regularly catastrophically deficient in the food supply. And I should bring up iodine here because iodine is one of the most serious deficiencies in the world, especially in America. And, usually they'll tell you not to take iodine if you have hyperthyroid. But, I mean, many deficiencies, they can cause both low or high blood cholesterol, both low or high blood sugar, high, low blood pressure. There's many deficiencies that could cause literally opposite symptoms, but still a dysfunction in that same system. So many people are warned away from taking iodine if they have hyperthyroid, yet that's by far one of the most important nutrients to take for your thyroid, whatever the dysfunction is, right? Think of it like you're chopping a tree. The tree can fall in either direction, it can fall north, south, east, west, or anything in between. It's like that with a lot of nutrient deficiencies, and it depends on what else is going on with the person, whether they're going to be hyper or hypothyroid. But in the case of hyperthyroid, most people eventually turn into hypo in the end. So, I just want to make the point that it's the same nutrient deficiencies. Regardless of which way the tree fell, it's the same general nutrient deficiencies. And there's a lot of them involved. I can't give you a shopping list for all of them. This is what we do in the program. We give, a tailored recommendation depending on you, what's going on with you, your body weight, your other symptoms, all kinds of things we take into consideration. But in general, the first thing that I would get on, well, maybe not even, okay. One of the most important is iodine, but iodine is also one of the most likely to cause side effects if you take it by itself. Don't want to scare you off of it, just saying that if you don't have all 90 essential nutrients there, you're a lot more likely to get a negative experience with iodine. So you want to be careful. And obviously, if you want actual help and guidance with this, you got to come into the membership because, again, we can't just give out a shopping list. It really doesn't work like that. The results are going to be a lot less predictable. We need to be able to pivot month by month, depending on who you are and what's going on, and etc., to help make sure that you get your result in the end, rather than having you just buy a bunch of random nutrients, even if they should help.
Thank you. For those that are just tuning in for the first time today, maybe this is the first Head to Toe Healing Live that you've seen, you might want to start and get these books, the Medical Monopoly book, the Head to Toe Healing book, the red and green books. Those are the first places to start to find out if head to toe healing is actually for you, if you want to proceed or not. And then hop over to drkevinreese.com. There's actually a link there for all of his books. He's got over 10 books out right now, more coming down the road. And that way you can get started, find out if it's for you. Another question, I'm going to loop this back to Ryan. To follow up on the acid reflux topic that you were talking about earlier, Joe's asking, doesn't apple cider vinegar help with that for acid reflux and poor digestion?
Sure, and so can lemon juice, because they're acidic, yes, but keep in mind they're nowhere near as acidic as your stomach is supposed to be. So the only way for your stomach to be as acidic as it's supposed to be, like battery acid, is to have the raw material to do that. Salt is one of those raw materials. It's the main raw material. You take the chloride from salt and turn it into hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So yes, taking something acidic can help, but you can't physically drink something that's as acidic as stomach acid. It would burn a hole through your esophagus. So you need your body to make that internally. And its own little chemical factory there, and it needs salt to do it. So if you get any relief at all from vinegar or lemon juice, then you're probably going to get a heck of a lot more relief by actually acidifying the stomach properly, because the vinegar will only make it a little bit more acidic than it is. It can't get it to full acidity.
Ryan, another one for you from Kimberly. What can I do for degenerative disc disease and degenerative joints without different medications? Thank you.
Well, medications will do absolutely nothing to regrow. There's no drug that's even claiming to help you regrow tissues like that. So it can slow down bone resorption, basically, by messing with an enzyme that it's supposed to break down bone, and then you have another cell that's rebuilding bone, so they block the one that breaks it down, and that causes other problems in the body. Like all drugs, it has side effects. So there's no drug that will fix this problem, not even close. The best it can do is just kind of stave it off for a while. What you need is all 90 essential nutrients, and today that's what we've been talking about. The calcium group. They work together also with ones that are not directly in that group. Remember, all nutrients are connected. They all work together. They're all cofactors for each other in some way. But yeah, we would use proper doses of all 90 essential nutrients, putting particular attention to our bone formula. And most likely this person would need extra connective tissue for several months as well. Connective tissue support supplements to rebuild all those tissues. It's going to take a while, but it can be done.
Thank you. And also to follow up, Ryan, earlier you talked about including salt for acid reflux. Jennifer's asking, is a teaspoon of quality salt in a glass of water good for somebody with super high blood pressure?
So we've talked about this before a few weeks ago when we did blood pressure, but I mentioned that if you are sensitive to salt, if salt makes your blood pressure go up, you have a potassium deficiency. That's what it is. You're not actually sensitive to salt. You just have a potassium deficiency. So there are different questions, right? The teaspoon of salt, yeah, that would be great for acidifying the stomach. I usually use more than that. I personally usually use between 1 and 3 tablespoons, depending on the person. And the idea is not to drink the entire thing, no matter what. It's to drink it and see how much you can drink. And, if you have reflux, you probably will be able to drink the whole glass. And that might even cause some diarrhea, might even make you a little bit sick for 12 to 24 hours or something like that. But that's telling you that you really, really needed to top that up. And salt is one of those that if you've been low, it can be a bit shocking to the body. So I really don't want to give an exact recipe here. I like to guide people through this more thoroughly. But a teaspoon is a much safer dose, meaning that you're less likely to get that sickness type of thing. And that doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens quite frequently to people who are very, very low in salt. And if you have reflux, then you're the number one suspect for being extremely low in salt. So yeah, teaspoon's a good dose. Just remember, you don't have to drink the whole thing. If it's absolutely repulsive, then don't force yourself to drink it. But most of the time, when people are low and when they have reflux, it actually does taste good and it feels good going down. So you might be able to slam that teaspoon of water, no problem at all. And you might need to do another one every single day until you'll be able to drink less and less of it. As you top up, you'll be able to drink less of it because your body will be telling you that's too much salt. That's your salt meter. When it becomes too salty, you've had enough. It's the same thing with food. You can't force yourself to eat something that's too salty. It doesn't matter how polite you are, you won't be able to do it. So you have to listen to your body very closely here when you're doing this. And if it tastes good, you keep going. And once it's too much, stop. And you may need to repeat it for several days to fully be topped up, especially if you're only taking a teaspoon. Probably takes several days, maybe even a couple of weeks, but you should feel progressively better in that time. And you do also want to be salting all of your food to taste, just enough to taste salt.
All right. Karen is asking Ryan how to help a 4-year-old that's a poop withholder. Is there anything you can suggest here?
Get them off the bad foods.
Will you repeat the bad foods just in case she joined us late?
Gluten, oil, fried, and fake, especially gluten. Gluten and dairy are the two most likely foods to be causing constipation. In a child, small child, gluten's the most likely for sure. And yeah, it's almost certain, I would bet on it, that it's being caused by food. Any digestive disturbance in a child is almost always caused by food.
All right. Histrina says, what can be done about Crohn's disease? Ryan? And we'll follow up with Sean because I know he has some opinions on this as well.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Crohn's is almost always caused directly and only by eating gluten. It's extremely simple. And it's a tragedy. You know, we have a lot of people who have Crohn's, they're diagnosed with Crohn's, but their doctor said, oh, let's do a gluten allergy test, and they're not allergic. So the doctor says, oh, well, don't worry about it then. Eat as much gluten as you want. So just know that this has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with an allergy. This is an irritant. It's an internal irritant. And it doesn't matter whether you're diagnosed as celiac or not, you want to get 100% rid of grains. And usually we're just strict on the gluten grains, especially wheat, barley, rye, and oats, the most prominent grains in our society, basically. We usually are just strict about getting rid of them. That's why the core 4 is gluten, oil, fried, and fake. We don't say grains, oil, fried, and fake. But if you have Crohn's disease, for now at least, you should get 100% rid of all grains, every single grain and all pseudo grains. So buckwheat, quinoa, all this stuff. But some of the more exotic ones like teff and millet and sorghum, all grains, just get completely rid of them for now, even rice. The only permissible one would be wild rice. You don't have to take it that serious. If you just go 100% gluten-free, you might get 100% better. But if you want to improve your chances of that and speed it up, get rid of all grains for now, and only even think about starting to reintroduce some of the non-gluten grains like sorghum and millet and teff later, after you have no symptoms for a couple of months at least. Only then would I play around with adding in, again, a little bit of those non-gluten grains or pseudo grains, but get rid of them for now.
Thank you for that. It looks like the lineup is with you still again, Ryan. There's another question. What about any suggestions on neuropathy? This person's in a lot of pain.
Neuropathy is more of a metabolic problem. So it usually comes along with after blood sugar problems. Right? It's one of the complications of diabetes, but you don't have to have diabetes to have neuropathy, and many people don't. So, but you do have a metabolic dysfunction, right? So there probably is some kind of a blood sugar problem, high or low, blood pressure problem, most likely high, blood cholesterol problem, most likely high. And those are the early stages of metabolic syndrome. If they looked, they'd probably find fatty liver and other fatty organs. And if the problem isn't corrected, then yeah, later down the line, this is where you get the neuropathies, the obesity, the kidney dysfunction, the macular degeneration, glaucoma, right? Diabetes is the leading cause of blindness. So These all come later, right? So neuropathy is about mid-stage metabolic syndrome, and you need to turn that around. You need to get off all the bad foods, right? Gluten, oil, fried, and fake, those are your top priorities, getting rid of them completely. Eating real foods, obviously. And you need all 90 essential nutrients and probably a little bit of extra blood sugar nutrients on top of that.
All right, thank you for that. This one kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about. Sarah's asking, will intermittent fasting help my metabolism?
Intermittent fasting.
Yep.
I've swung pretty hard against intermittent fasting in recent years. I intermittent fasted myself for about 10 years, and I think it ruined my stomach. And I can't prove that, but I have strong suspicion. And I've known several other people that, past the 5 year mark of intermittent fasting, and it usually doesn't look good for them, especially when women typically are trying to lose weight. I say this probably every week because it's one of the hugest things that we deal with in the membership. Women who have been chronic dieting for years, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Some of them have been dieting since the 70s, and that can be screwing up their metabolism big time. And one of the main things that people do is OMAD, 1 meal a day, or intermittent fasting. And it makes sense on paper. You lower your amount of calories significantly, but very, very clearly, we see a lot of people with very screwed up metabolisms from doing that. And often I have to get them, force them to eat breakfast, like kind of yell at them. You got to eat breakfast. You got to start eating more because you can't function on that small amount of calories forever. It will burn out your metabolism. And so we see a lot of these women who are actually gaining weight on a ridiculously small amount of calories. So their body's in starvation mode. And so I'm not saying that the benefits of intermittent fasting that they find in a 6-week trial with some college kids or something like that, I'm not saying that that's not true. There is benefits to intermittent fasting, but a lot of people take it way too far, first of all. And most of those people don't have enough nutrients to balance this whole thing out. So if you're fasting, if you have a metabolic problem due to nutrient deficiencies or toxic foods and processed foods and stuff, and you try to fix that problem by simply lowering the calories, all you're going to do is screw up your metabolism more because you still have the nutrient deficiencies, possibly still have processed foods going in, and all you've done is lower the calories. So now your body just actually has less to run on than it did before. And so you can be in way worse shape, have a very difficult time losing weight. Talking about neuropathy, very difficult time reversing neuropathy, blood sugar problems, blood pressure problems, blood cholesterol problems, all the metabolic problems can be very, very hard to reverse once you've slowed down your metabolism that much. So I don't recommend intermittent fasting basically at all. If you're a young man who's relatively healthy, a lot of us did it because it's very convenient. You're going to be fine for a while. But don't think that just because you're fine now that you're going to be fine forever. Your metabolism may start to slow down significantly, and you should be looking out for signs of that, especially as we get older. I do believe that we need more food.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy. Go ahead, Brian. Is there one more?
Proper fasting of more than 24 hours is much more effective, especially if you keep your calorie intake reasonable, enough to run your metabolism when you are eating. It's way better. Results are way better across the board.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that extra information. Coach Gingy, in regards to intermittent fasting, when people are fasting, how does that affect the mind? I would imagine the mind starts to play tricks on scarcity and other things.
Well, what you'll find is that the mind is really the biggest thing that you're surmounting through fasting. Because what you'll notice is that you almost are acting like an addict. You're like, why am I craving sugar? Okay, then that goes away. You're like, why am I craving pickles? And then that goes away. You're like, why am I craving that one dessert from that one place I had 4 years ago that I haven't thought of since? It's because all of a sudden your body starts communicating with you in a way that starts acting like an addict. Like, I need food. I need food. How about this one? How about this one? And you'll notice that there's a lot of story. There's a lot of explanation. There's a lot of justification that starts running through the mind of like, well, I already did a full day, or really, this is the end of the day. That's been 24 hours since dinner last night. I can even, there's all these justifications that come through. And so there's a phenomena that happens that just in going through that, and staying committed that you almost create a disciplinary strength. Um, I don't even really know what the word would be for it, but you begin to develop this resiliency to biological urges. And you'll notice that pain is less painful and that hunger is less hungerful and thirst is less thirstful and so on and so forth. You'll notice that it's more like the body's just communicating with you as opposed to now the body's telling you what to do. It's like you kind of switch yourself into the driver's seat and the body's no longer driving, which is incredibly powerful because now guess what? You can choose whether to eat food for gratification of your senses, of your taste buds, or based off of what you know is good for you. And if you're basing it off of that principle, if you're basing it off of what you know to be good for you, then all of a sudden it's easy to not eat gluten. It's easy to not eat processed foods. It's easy to stay off of the poor four because your body is no longer in charge. And it's so easy. Imagine going to a restaurant and sitting down and somebody orders something across another table from you and it's your favorite dish that you used to eat and it's loaded full of gluten and oil and all the bad stuff and you're like, "Oh man, I could just one. I've been really good for like 6 months. Maybe I'll just," and you start explaining your way into breaking your commitments. If you've practiced fasting or any other discipline like that, and you've developed the ability to have strength in those situations, you'll notice that it's like, well, maybe no. And it just ends the conversation. It's one of the reasons why we've had such good results with Dr. Reese's inner child work, because he teaches you in the membership how to communicate to your subconscious, how to communicate to those urges, those bodily urges that are going on in a way that's loving and nurturing, and you're not oppressing and suppressing your hunger saying, "No, don't be hungry, don't be hungry, I'm not going to do this." You're actually in relationship with it and allowing it to be what it is, but still being the adult in the room and still being in the driver's seat and be like, "I know you want to take a big detour, but this is what we got to do for our best interest." And so it's a really powerful process, I'll say, doing fasting or doing any other discipline like that, because if you can get your mind over your body and you're able to then decide for yourself what's best for you, like I would wager right now, I would wager a significant amount of money that one of the biggest problems that every one of us that's listening to this now is going through is that they don't have full control over their urges. There's some type of urge that comes up and you're like, well, maybe just this once, or maybe I'll start next week, or maybe. And that conversation, that ability to say, well, no, this is what's good for me. Because if you know what's good for you and you're not doing it, there's a mindfulness problem. If you don't know what's good for you and you're not doing it, well, there's just an ignorance issue. You need to learn more and understand what's going on in order to make the right decisions. But the majority of us, our biggest problem is that we know what we need to do to improve our situation. We just aren't sticking with it. And fasting and other things can help with that discipline, because that's the big determining factor. I bet you every single person on this call has something in their life that they think about it, they'll go, "Yeah, I know this isn't in my best interest. Why am I still doing it?" And that's a good question to ask.
Thank you, Gingy. That's awesome. One more question for Ryan and we'll wrap up for the day. Cornelia is asking, what can I do for my fibromyalgia? I suffer from a lot of pains in my body, especially my legs. They are the worst.
Fibromyalgia is very general. So there's not one nutrient deficiency that can cause it, and there's not even one group. There's dozens and dozens of different deficiencies, and probably you have a bunch of them, right? Fibromyalgia is just kind of a catch-all term. It's not a specific problem. So chances are you have multiple nutrient deficiencies. Chances are you have other symptoms too, probably metabolic symptoms too, that happen first, most likely. And they might be considered more minor things, like even menstrual difficulties or something like that, sleep trouble, but minor things, but signifying that something is missing. And fibromyalgia will come along later when the deficiencies get severe. So we would use all 90 essential nutrients, maybe some extra minerals if they need it. We look at the other symptoms. Do they have blood sugar symptoms or thyroid or something that needs some extra support? But in general, it's just a very general problem. So we throw the normal 90 essential nutrients at it, get you off the bad foods, do the posture therapy, do the mindfulness. And usually that's enough. Usually just starts to get better and goes all the way away. Nothing permanent about it. There's no injury or anything.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. And if you're watching this in a replay, we appreciate you. If you're curious about head to toe healing and whether or not it's for you, go to drkevinreese.com. There's a book tab there. You'll want to start with these two books, the red and the green book, and find out if head to toe healing is for you. And then once you do that, if it does interest you, pop over to the other tab that says start, book a call with us. It is free. Talk to one of our coaches. We'll find out a little bit more about you, answer your questions, and see what next steps might be for your head to toe healing journey. Have a great rest of your day and be well.
Stay healthy, everyone.